This Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. He's a member of the Armed Services Committee, and he served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Senator Cotton, thanks so much for being here. Obviously, the larger context, American soldiers have fought and died to bring a better way of life for the Afghan people. But let's talk about this incident. Doctors Without Borders insisting that they had shared the coordinates of their hospital with American officials for weeks, they say. What do you think happened?
Well, Jake, before we get to the specific instance of the assault in Kunduz, I do want to talk about the larger context. We've been fighting in Afghanistan now for 14 years. It's the one place from which we've expelled al-Qaeda, and many brave Americans have given their life. Just Saturday was the 6-year anniversary of the Battle of Kop Keating, which you chronicled in your book, The Outpost, and I'm grateful for your attention to this war and the ongoing sacrifice of our soldiers there to make sure that there's never another terrorist attack launched from Afghanistan. Now, in Kunduz, it's unclear still exactly what happened. Obviously, General Campbell testified today that American forces on the ground and in the air were involved, but it's too soon to identify exactly what went wrong, although something went wrong and it was a terrible tragedy. There are 3 different investigations underway, and I have every confidence that General Campbell is going to get to the bottom of this, and if there was wrongdoing or negligence, then American forces will be held to account. I'm also confident, though, the American forces involved probably regret this more than anyone, but ultimately we have to remember it's the Taliban that commit war crimes in Afghanistan, in part by fighting from built-up civilian areas.
That's absolutely right. No disagreement with what you said. Translate something for us, if you would, from military speak to regular English. General Campbell said today that the entire force needs to review all operational authorities and rules of engagement. You're a combat veteran. What does that mean?
Well, obviously, this was a mass casualty event, and that's a terrible tragedy. But even at the lowest level, when there's an accident on the road or an event in which a civilian is injured but not killed by a single gunshot wound, you'll undergo retraining from the highest level down to the lowest level. I participated in this in Afghanistan. It can be something relatively minor, such as hitting, a local farmer's goat or his sheep, but they always undergo retraining to ensure that everyone understands the rules of engagement and to ensure that everyone is proficient in the skills needed both to kill our enemies but also to protect civilians.
How many troops do you think need to remain on the ground in Afghanistan to continue this fight to push back against the Taliban, al-Qaeda, and now it appears ISIS?
Jake, I wouldn't recommend that we draw down much below where we are now at 10,000. Ultimately, though, as General Campbell testified, it's about capabilities, not personnel. We have to take an assessment of the conditions on the battlefield. And the Afghan security forces, while doing a relatively good job of fighting on the front lines, do need a lot of capabilities that only the United States-led coalition can supply. Close air support, for instance, logistics, intelligence support, maintenance support, and so forth. When you look at those capability gaps that they have and they need to support their frontline troops, I would say it's probably about 10,000. I hope the president makes a decision based on those conditions on the ground, not based on the end of his administration and the political calendar.
I want to change subject just for this last question here, sir. You're calling for an investigation into the Secret Service for leaking personal information about Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz, who chairs a committee that oversees the Secret Service, has been a critic of many of their mishaps. Do you believe at this point that the director of the agency, Joe Clancy, should be fired?
Jake, I don't want to prejudge any particular outcome, either in workplace discipline or criminal investigation, but it's actually much worse than just a leak. 45 different employees of the Secret Service, we now know, thanks to Inspector General report, illegally accessed their files to discover Jason Chaffetz's personnel file. So this is a case in which the American people's elected representatives were trying to do their job to conduct oversight of past misconduct by the Secret Service. And the Secret Service leadership, at least, tolerated intimidation and retaliation. That should frighten most Americans because it could happen to them if it could happen to a powerful chairman of a congressional committee, and it could interfere with their elected representatives doing their job to hold the executive branch accountable.
Senator Tom Cotton, thank you so much. Appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, Jake.
In our national lead today, the